Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded, where we spend a few minutes each week talking about psychology, our emotions, behavioral health, and we reflect on how these important topics are related to the gospel reading for each Sunday. I like to always point out that this isn't in any way a substitute for actually going to church or participating in counseling or therapy, spiritual direction, if you are involved in those sort of practices. But like we know so well, things of our mind, our psychology, so often goes beautifully hand in hand with our spirituality. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, I invite you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode of Gospel Minded. So here we are, continuing along our journey in ordinary time. We're still in Mark's Gospel, and today's passage comes from the 8th chapter. The beginning of it says this: "And Jesus went on with his disciples to the village of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, 'Who do they say that I am?' And they told him, 'John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets.' And he asked them, 'But who do you say that I am?' Peter answered him, 'You are Christ.' And he charged them to tell no one about him." All right, so that's the beginning of the gospel for today. And it goes on. If you were at Mass, you would have heard that passage continue. But I want to stop right there. So Jesus poses this question to the disciples who were gathered with him: "Who do others say that I am?" And I think that Jesus is asking that question more for the sake of the disciples rather than for himself. And of course, they confess. People say that you're John the Baptist, or a prophet, or Elijah. And Peter answers, "You are the Christ, you are the anointed one." So again, I think that the purpose of Jesus asking this is less about him and more about the disciples. But you and I ask a similar question a lot, and we're almost conditioned to ask that question from the time that we're very young. Who do others say that I am? What are people saying about me? People talking about me behind my back? We're very interested, keenly and acutely aware that other people may be talking about us. And why is that? Why is it that we're almost, as it were, hardwired to be conscientious about what other people think of us? We are inherently relational beings. We're meant for communion and community. We're meant to have good, positive relationships with other people. And part of that means knowing that somebody else has my back, that I can have somebody else's back. Nobody likes to be talked about behind their back, especially if they're saying negative things. So having this question, what are other people saying about me? It's something that is very natural and normal and a pretty conventional part of the human experience. You know, I recently was, I don't want to say tricked, but my wife has been talking to me for years about watching the movie Mean Girls. And I protested and avoided as long as I could. And finally, several weeks ago, I caved and I watched Mean Girls with my wife. And I got to tell you, I really wish that I hadn't waited so long, because wow, what a enlightening case study in exactly what I'm talking about today. Who do others say that I am? What are people saying about me? So in the movie, if you haven't seen it, it's a very old movie, so I'm not going to give away spoilers, but you should have really already seen it, as I should have too. But, you know, the girl is trying to be able to fit in with the popular girls. She wants to have a good network with the nerds and the less popular kids at school. These dynamics of social interaction are very much so at play. And that sort of dynamic that in the movie they portrayed her having in high school is something that a lot of us have experienced throughout the course of our life, and it doesn't stop when we get out of high school. Perhaps it gets more nuanced. Perhaps there are more intricacies to our interpersonal relationships. But in a lot of ways, the way we relate to people as teenagers and high schoolers may look similar as we progress along in life. So let's just talk for a minute about why it is then that we need to have that question in mind. Who do others say that I am? It's a normal question, and it's a good question, because we need to be involved with what other people think of us to a certain extent. Take, for example, when you're at work, it may be the case that your boss has to evaluate you, has to evaluate your work, your production. We want to make sure that we are understanding what our boss thinks of us and what we're doing and how we're performing. We want to be conscientious of what the boss's opinion of me is. Same thing perhaps with a student at school. A teacher has to evaluate a student's performance on papers, on tests, this sort of thing. Perhaps it's less of a measure of what the teacher thinks of the student as a person and more about what the teacher thinks about that student's work. But either way, the student must know where they stand with what they're doing in the eyes of the teacher or the professor. So it is important to know what people think of us. And then, not only with work and school, but just interpersonally. Like I mentioned, we're meant for good communication with others. We're geared towards having relationships. And if we are finding ourselves not having good relationships, there's probably some data in there somewhere. You know, literature says that at any given moment, around 10 to 15% of our brain is constantly analyzing things related to interactions with other people, or if we're not actually with somebody else, then thoughts about what we will say when we are with somebody or how we will be when we are with somebody. Like our very brain chemistry is oriented towards this idea of wanting to be able to connect with other people and to wanting to make these good connections. So there's a very positive and necessary component to this. What do others say about me? What are they thinking about me? Who do others say that I am? It's an adaptive function of the mind to be having that question at the forefront. However, like so many things with our behavioral health, when that is overemphasized, it can become very problematic. And I don't think it's any surprise to you that sometimes people can get so dug into this perception about what others think, or they'll want to know what others' perceptions of them are all the time, and they're forever analyzing and thinking about what is such and such going to say about me, what is somebody going to think about if I do this or that or the other thing, and we're forever making these calculations and trying to calculate and coordinate everything just so in our mind. It can be pretty exhausting, and it can become all-encompassing and really debilitating. I mean, if that is where you're at, this constant state of analysis, where it becomes almost an obsession about what other people think about me, what we can notice clinically are some of the problems that may not surprise you: symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression, symptoms of problematic self-image, maybe even body image issues, just a lot of negative things that can come with this. So there has to be this important balance. Yes, I do want to know what other people think about me, and I want to know where I stand with others. And at the same time, we have to have that healthy balance of what others think about me and say about me isn't my entire world. And so, couple pieces then to follow on with that. First of all, hurting people hurt other people. It may be the case that no matter how good we are or how nice we are, others may just not like us, or we may find ourselves being hurt by others. Perhaps it's because they themselves are hurt. But the bottom line is that we're not going to be the best of friends with every single person we come across all the time. And that's a part of the human experience as well. We need to shake hands with that fact that even if I do my very best, I'm not going to have a great relationship with everybody I meet all the time. And that's okay. So now this is the real game-changing literature that I want to present to you today. How do you make yourself more likable to more people then? According to research, it is go out of your way to be kind to other people. No way. If I'm nice to others, I'll be more likable? Absolutely. That's what the research, at least over the last 10 or 15 years, has been suggesting. That if we adopt this others mindset, this others oriented approach to life, and put the needs and thoughts and concerns of others ahead of ourselves, that it will do a couple of things. First of all, it will make us feel better, but there's something about that mechanism of pouring yourself out for others that just corresponds with an elevated sense of meaning, of communion, of friendship. So not only is it good for you just because of the work itself or the kindness itself, but more times than not, the people to whom you are being kind are going to view you in a more favorable way, thus making you a more likable person. They'll have a higher opinion of you. They'll say good things when you have that question about who do others say that I am. And, I think there's always this bias too. Literature shows that we always highly, highly overestimate the negative opinions that others might have of us. We really aren't being watched and judged and negatively evaluated as much or as harshly as we believe in our mind. You are a likable person. And if you go out of your way to be kind and helpful to others, you will be an even more likable person. And I believe you'll be a more holy person. What could be more consistent with having the mind of Christ than being a person who pours themselves out for others? So I hope this is helpful for you. Good stuff to talk about. And I hope you'll join me next week here at Gospel Minded. I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Take care.